Rachel Notley is flipping and flopping. Now she does want to limit supply of oil to BC to fight their pipeline blockade. I wonder what UCP policy she'll adopt next and then claim it as her own brilliant idea. This week was the Alberta government's speech from the throne. Now, this is an opportunity for the sitting government to lay out what they're going to do and do to us in the next legislative session. And this throne speech saw Premier Notley talking tough through the Lieutenant Governor about British Columbia's blockade of the Trans Mountain pipeline from Edmonton to the BC coast. Just watch.
Some people have asked how far we are willing to go. Today, we reaffirm we will do whatever it takes. In the past, when workers in our energy industry were attacked and when the resources we own were threatened, Premier Peter Lougheed took bold action. Your government has been clear. Every option is on the table. We will not hesitate to invoke similar legislation if it becomes necessary owing to extreme and illegal actions on the part of the BC government to stop the pipeline.
For a little bit of context for the younger folks, Progressive Conservative Premier Peter Lougheed cut oil production in 1980 down to 85% of capacity to fight back against Pierre Elliott Trudeau's national energy program and the export tax he slapped on Alberta oil and gas. When asked about what those bold throne speech threats really meant in a press conference held after the speech from the throne, this is what Notley had to say. Here.
So you're looking at turning the tax off, basically, to just BC or the whole country?
So what we are looking at doing right now is simply ensuring that as part of a long list of tools that we have, many of which we haven't really talked about yet, but between the wine ban and what you're talking about, what we're making sure is that we have the ability to engage all those tools strategically. So one thing might ultimately turn into the restriction of supply down the road.
Well, I guess Notley's poorly conceived BC wine ban wasn't as effective as she told us all it would be. So it's time to play hardball. It's good to see Notley being bold. And boy, those threats to let our Western neighbors freeze in the dark sound pretty darn familiar. They sound a lot like something United Conservative Party leader Jason Kenney has been saying for at least the better part of a year now. Just watch.
If the BC government, through dilatory measures, stands in the way of the construction of the approved expansion of Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain, that there will be consequences.
Maybe if Vancouverites woke up one morning and found that their gas prices had doubled or tripled, they'd wonder what's going on. And maybe they would see that they actually do need Alberta and Canadian energy to fuel their own prosperity.
Mayor of Vancouver says he wants a carbon-free Vancouver by 2040. I'm prepared to give him a carbon-free Vancouver by 2020 if they stop that pipeline.
In 1982, Peter Lougheed stopped permitting the shipment of gas to Sarnia to bring the federal government to the table on the National Energy Program. We might have to consider a similar approach. There are a lot of points of economic leverage that Alberta has if BC decides to violate the rule of law by blocking the construction of that safe and approved pipeline.
Yeah, that's right. United Conservative Party leader Jason Kenney has been talking about leveraging our oil supply in the standoff against BC over the Trans Mountain pipeline long before he was ever even leader of his own party. And Notley, on the other hand, she didn't think it was such a great idea back when Jason Kenney was the one pushing it. Don't believe me? Just hear it from Rachel Notley herself. Listen.
You know, the Conservatives couldn't get a pipeline built for 20 years, and now they want to act like tough guys, threatening a trade war with BC. Conservative government in BC, Conservative government in Ottawa, Conservative government in Alberta, and still, they couldn't get a pipeline built. We aren't going to repeat those failures. We're going to get this pipeline built.
You know, he's just not going to build a pipeline by crossing his arms, sticking out his lower lip, pouting, and then somehow suggesting that the answer to it is to ask Kinder Morgan to actually stop shipping what they're already shipping in order to get this done. I mean, none of this makes sense.
Look, I'm all for cutting BC off of Alberta oil until they figure out just how important Alberta oil really is to them. BC already sees some of the highest gas prices on the entire continent. Let's see how high those gas prices can go when they don't have Alberta supply to meet their oil and gas needs. The green folks in BC will figure out pretty darn fast that they're just as addicted to oil and gas as the rest of us. Those opposed to the Trans Mountain Pipeline will get mugged by reality the exact same way Rachel Notley is today. But let's not pretend for a minute that this plan to limit oil supply to BC is Notley's brainchild or something she didn't take to the national media to openly mock as isolationist, Trumpian, and adversarial. I'm glad Rachel Notley has come around to my way of thinking, but I'm not about to let her off the hook for what she said in the past about the proponents of limiting oil supply to our political enemies. On the bright side, though, if Notley keeps up this trend of poaching United Conservative Party ideas to save face, she just might be willing to scrap her own carbon tax before 2019. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Please make a donation to cover the cost of the billboard truck that I want to have drive around Calgary to expose Kang for his sexual misdeeds. That's firekang.com.